Hey my friends, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about why it feels these days like reality is glitching. Have you experienced like weird things happening with your technology, or you've experienced like for a certain period of time in your day you have like peak state of energy, focus, emotional clarity, everything, and then suddenly like something would hit you, like there's a wave of energy that would just hit you and it would pull you off the balance, and suddenly you're in a brain fog and suddenly you feel maybe dizzy, lack of motivation, and you have this kind of mood shifts that are happening more intensely than ever before. Or you just feel like so deeply inspired and then suddenly something just cuts you and then inspiration comes back, and those are all kind of glitches we experience. So glitches, like you would be shifting between timelines, and timelines work like layers. I think the best explanation of timelines is what we can get from Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zinald, who's a quantum physicist who's been exploring these metaphysical concepts a lot, and he explains reality as each individual lives in a unique layer that is designed by his thoughts, emotions, expectations, all the paradigms we hold on to, and conditioning, all of that. So it creates your own layer that serves you in a way of how life manifests for you. And then everything depends on how much you allow external influences to really influence you. That's how this layer of yours kind of intertwine with layers of other people, and suddenly your reality starts to become more similar to the people who've influenced you. That's why, for example, if you allow yourself to be influenced by someone who's very successful, you will eventually become successful. And if you allow yourself to be influenced by someone who's broke and lives in constant victimhood, you will become like that as well. So what's happening on the world right now is that there's so much of division, there's so much of conflict, there's so many different information, there's so many different polarities, that it's almost like all these different layers would be like not intertwining anymore, but almost like stretching away. Like there would be one field of reality, like one bubble of reality, and then there's another bubble of reality, and there's another bubble of reality, and another bubble of reality, and they are like kind of going apart, and you're experiencing like jumping from one to another. Like for a certain period of time, you deeply believe into certain spiritual concepts, and then suddenly you jump into more scientific concepts, and then suddenly you jump into something else and more religious and whatever, because there's so much of different influences very potently present right now. And because if we don't fully ground ourselves, if we don't fully stabilize ourselves, it may feel like for a certain period of time we are influenced by this energy, and for another period of time we're influenced by something else. And there's just so much of division right now. So if you're really not fully grounded and stable and knowing what you want and knowing what you are creating for yourself, it may feel like this cosmic wind is just blowing you around a little bit. And that's where these glitches become very, very potent, because in one reality your life works this way, in other reality your life works this way, and in between, well, something may happen with technology. We need to understand that we see less than 0.0001% of reality. You see, all the matter is actually 0.00000001 matter. Everything else is energy, and we see less than 1% of light. So there's so many frequencies we don't even perceive, we don't even know, and we are constantly in touch with them. We are constantly in touch with all different realities. Our perception is not open to them yet because our brain is not capable of perceiving something that's unfamiliar to us if we don't really investigate it, if we don't really tap into the unknown, tap into the nothingness, the emptiness of space. That's where we start training our brain to perceive new frequencies. That's what happens when you, for example, focus onto nothingness, into an empty space. Like you place your attention off the known, off the matter, off the sounds, off the tastes, off the touching, and you focus on the nothingness. What starts happening, your brain will calm down. This is something we've been exploring in the previous video about 33rd degree knowledge, very powerful information. So when your brain calms down, what happens? Well, it goes into alpha brainwave frequency, then it goes into theta, then if you persist in it, it goes into delta, and eventually you plug into a very, very high frequency. Science call it gamma brainwave frequency. It's like you would be under incredible stress, just that this frequency is in such an incredible order. And what happens when you're focusing on nothingness, you become nothing. But nothingness is not really nothing, it is infinity. It holds potential, it holds, potential means there's more than what is, and you kind of tap into more than what is right now. In yesterday's video I've mentioned to you, God is not a state of perfection, it's a state of becoming. And this is what this universe is all about. It's constantly becoming something new. It's constantly stretching. Science says this universe is constantly expanding. It's moving. There's a cosmic wind. Astrology is the science of explanation of cosmic wheels, of planets, of galaxies, of movement of stars. And then we have our own wheels, like years, months, weeks, days. Everything is moving. And as long as you are staying the same as you've been yesterday, you're moving in a spiral that is decreasing, downward spiral, and that's what we call aging. When we decide to evolve, which means we decide to evolve our way of thinking, we decide to evolve our way of feeling, we decide to evolve our way of making choices, we decide to have new experiences, we decide to create new results for ourselves, we start moving towards evolution, which is upward spiral. And that means that we consciously decide to move into different layers of reality, to shift into different parallel versions of ourselves that are more evolved, because there is no time beyond third dimension. Everything is happening now. Everything is already created. In the quantum field, according to science, there's nothing new. Everything already exists as a potential, and the act of observer always creates something that is possible to see. And we observe through thoughts and through emotions. That's what taps us into reality. So when we experience a massive confusion, because there's so much of division, so much of different information, it just feels like we are being blown around a little bit here, a little bit here, and that's why glitches are happening so much. You may experience, like I've experienced in my car, like for few days there was a certain problem reporting, and then I knew that I just felt like, many times when there's something weird, I just feel like, I just say to myself, well, it's a glitch, and it will just, it will kind of disappear. And then a few days later it disappeared and there's no problem anymore. It happened for me 2 or 3 times. Every time it disappeared. And to some people it happens with their computers, to some people it happens with other things. Sometimes it happens to people that they have a problem with a car, they go to a mechanic, and mechanic says everything is completely fine. Because it's not the car that is the problem, it's their layer of reality that is experiencing a problem. And problem usually is a confusion. Confusion is an incoherent frequency. Because if you imagine frequency in the greatest state of clarity, it's completely narrow. It's so coherent that it's narrow. And let's say that when this frequency is vibration, it is vibrating. The movement of frequency is called vibration. And every time it experiences peaks, it's a moment of clarity. When it experiences lows, it's another moment of clarity. But somewhere in between, it's a gap. It may be a gap of unknown, it may be a gap of confusion. Depends of how incoherent it is. Incoherent frequency means that there are irregular jumps, like irregular climbing and falling. And it's completely okay, like it's a process of learning. But more frequency becomes coherent, less there is this infrequent jumps. There's more fluidity, which means that there is not so many gaps of not knowing and knowing. There's more of a stream of just knowing and trusting. So more we become coherent in our lives, which means more we surrender to the greater order of life, like knowing that life has our back, knowing that life supports you, an unconditional trust that everything works in your favor. But at the same time you work in your favor, at the same time you do your work, at the same time you organize your mind and put work into action. You organize your thoughts, you study what can help you to evolve, you make this information practical, and you become it. Like I said in the previous video, it's from thinking to doing to being. The process from thinking, studying, to doing, practicing, to being, becoming what you've studied. When you walk on this path, well, your energy bubble, your layer of reality becomes very firm, very grounded. And when this happens, you create a whole unique reality for you. You become like a very firm individual that is not so affected by external forces anymore, by external energy pendulums, for those of you who are familiar with this term. Now you're designing your own reality, and now you're understanding that your reality has a purpose. And the purpose of your reality is partially you are an example for others, partially you're here learning and expanding, and partially you're just playing around. You're having a joyful experience. That's what you're supposed to have, which doesn't mean it should be like this all the time, but you should follow joy. And purpose will create joy. So once we understand this, then our reality becomes less, just random glitching. It becomes more of a conscious glitching. There's been a lot of science done what happens when collectively people focus on one and the same thing. Then reality doesn't feel so random anymore. It becomes very, very consciously organized. So there's one computer program that is like producing the tossing of coin, and if you just leave it there, it will be constantly, very in balance. It will be tossing a coin, and there will be head and there will be a number, and it will be almost like 50-50. But once this computer is in a same room where people are like collectively focusing on one specific outcome, this coin becomes very incoherent. Like now there's more time on a number and less time on a face. This is something that at Dr. Joe Dispenza's events they've been exploring a lot, and I found it very interesting. Like they found out that reality truly is not random. It is our creation. And when we focus on really consciously creating our lives, then events in our lives are not so random anymore. There is still a lot of random events because we are just not so good creators yet. But I think it's something we should aim towards, because at certain point of your past, you've designed this universe because you are God. Jesus said, I and Father are one, just that Father is greater than I am. Because he understands he is the particle of God. He is God. He is infused with Spirit. He is all of this. So partially he designed all of this. Partially you have designed all of this. But right now you don't possess the awareness around the knowledge how all of this works. So you're learning all of this, and this is okay. Don't rush the process. Be patient with yourself. Be loving to yourself, because you're learning all of this. But at the same time, you need to understand that you already know and you want to tap into the knowing. Sometimes just observe the nature and ask yourself how I've designed all of this. Not out of ego, not out of arrogance, but just to tap into the mystical and see what finds you as an intuitive insight. Like how I've designed all of this. Tap into the creator mode, tap into the God mode, and see what finds you. Intuition is more powerful than intellect, my friend. It's wiser than intellect. It's way older than intellect. Science says our DNA holds within information from the beginning of time. So think about what already exists within you if you would learn to tap into it. So I hope this video can explain some of these glitches. I want to say thanks to everyone for watching. I hope you found great value here today, and I want to say thanks to everyone for choosing to support my art. Right now we are running a special sale, 20 off on all the prints and 15 off on the original paintings. So check it out on AttractPassion.com, and thanks to everyone for joining our Patreon community for more exclusive content. Check it out. Until next time, one love.